enjoin that one should factually understand. Okay. The Vedas therefore enjoin that one should factually understand that he is not material, but is actually Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. This understanding cannot be fully realized unless one is engaged in Brahman activities, namely devotional service. To get free from the material conditions, one has to take to Krishna consciousness. That is the only remedy. Verse again. Artahi avidyamanapi samsmritirna nivartate manasalingarupena swapna vicharato yata. Sometimes we suffer because we see a tiger in a dream or a snake in a vision, but actually there is neither a tiger nor a snake. Thus we create some situation in a subtle form and suffer the consequences. These sufferings cannot be mitigated unless we are awakened from our dream. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyanandana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Tapitam Yena Bhutale Swayarupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpa Tarubhishcha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashtatyade Shatarine. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. We continue reading from the 4th canto. The chapter is called Talks Between Narada and King Pracinabarhi. We are in the middle of the discussion, or not in the middle, almost in the middle. And here Narada Muni, he starts to go deeper in his explanation. The verse before, when it starts, is Narada continued. O you who are free from all sinful activity, no one can counteract the effects of fruitive activity simply by manufacturing a different activity, devoid of Krishna consciousness. All such activity is due to our ignorance. When we have a troublesome dream, we cannot relieve it with a troublesome hallucination. One can counteract a dream only by awaking. Similarly, our material existence is due to our ignorance and illusion. Unless we awaken to Krishna consciousness, we cannot be relieved of such dreams. For the ultimate solution to all problems, we must awaken to Krishna consciousness. And then he elaborates also on that, the dream part. Sometimes, or how we go through this, sometimes we suffer because we see a tiger in a dream or a snake in a vision. But actually there is neither a tiger nor a snake. Thus we create some situation in a subtle form and suffer the consequences. These sufferings cannot be mitigated unless we are awakened from our dream. We're discussing dream in a dream. For those who are recent in Krishna consciousness, they must have seen the film. What was the name of the film? Inception or something like that. I think Johnny Depp or some actor, Hollywood actor, was playing in a dream. I mean, in a film where he was going to. In that film, it was like the person was going to in the dream, and then because of his subconsciousness, he was going in the dream, and try to escape or get out or whatever the story was. But it was interesting how it was described, how that subconsciousness or even unconsciousness, because there was like a few stages of the dream, and the person couldn't get out or solve that problem quite easily, whatever it was. I vaguely remember, but I remember that point that was made in a film that about the stages of the dream. And so we are in one sense in a dream, in this material world, which is a temporary place. We don't belong here as spirit soul, yet we are experiencing happiness and distress as per this famous verse in Bhagavad Gita. Matras parshas tikantiya shitoshna sukadukada agama payano nityas tam stitikshasa bharata. And sufferings do come, they're non-permanent, and like not only suffering but happiness also. They appear and disappear as winter and summer seasons, which means a cycle. And yet we're trying to find the happiness here. We got this illusion that we can find it. That's our problem. And with that, will be constantly experiencing this situation of subtle form of some suffering or even happiness, and the consequences of that also. So when we are sleeping and we have a dream of a tiger attacking us, or maybe we don't see tigers so much, so maybe we don't have much dreams of tigers these days, but maybe we see a dream with a war, right? There's a lot of wars going on in Kali Yuga, and either somebody experienced it directly, even devotees, or indirectly by hearing the news about it, or it still sits in our deep unconsciousness or somewhere as an experience of samskara from previous life, because in Kali Yuga, obviously, there were, as I said, many wars. So sometimes a person may see a dream of war, or bombing, or shell, different situations, somebody chasing him. And so she or he will experience distress. It will be a troublesome dream in which even the body may shake. You may call out for help in the dream, and it may even come out from your physical body while you're sleeping in the form of some sound. So it may be a very stressful situation. And somebody who is nearby you, if there is somebody nearby you, he can just shake you and say, "Hey, wake up, what's wrong? Why are you screaming?" And then when you wake up, you usually have a sigh of relief. Whew, it was just a dream. But a dream causes you real distress. I mean, even your body experiences distress. Even your heart rate, if you would have a smart watch and have your heart pulse rate measured at that time, usually when we sleep, the heart rate goes to like a very calm pulse, usually even below 60, around 55 or even 50. Just you're sleeping, so the body is resting, it's not moving. But if you experience such dream, even your heart pulse rate will go up. In other words, it will cause you some disturbance and distress, but it's not real. Although it's based on some reality, and that's why your brain reproduces that reality in a form of a dream, which also may cause you happiness or distress, because it can be a happy dreams also. It's one form of illusion. The other one, as described here, is a snake, which may be just not in a dream, but you may see some object, think it's a snake, usually a rope or some kind of, stick, even maybe, a curly stick. You may, due to your bad vision, bad eyesight, or being constantly afraid of snakes, and that may cause you paranoia. So what you're not asleep in this material world. You're awaking, you're walking through the forest, through the fields, but it maybe you see and you even will jump from that object when you will just step on it or see it or get closer to it. And again, your heart rate pulse rate will increase, and your muscles will get strained. You're preparing for kind of a fight, do something about it, run away or somehow react. But then you see, when you actually, the fog clears, so-called, again, somebody nearby tell you, hey, it's just a rope, or hey, it's just a stick, or other object. You misunderstood. I had this situation with a Bhaicharan Prabhu here on the farm. We went and then he jumped. We were on a japa walk, and then he jumped, get ready to, take a stick or something to take the snake away, but it wasn't a snake, it was actually a rope. So some kind of rope that was, fell from, I don't know, maybe it was a bale rope for the hay, something. So he misunderstood, because we have, garden snake, black snakes, and some other type of snakes here. They're not poisonous, yet the reaction for the snake is usually before you understand, okay, this is a non-poisonous black snake. For most of the people, some of them are, especially here, got used to the snakes and don't bother too much, especially knowing that they're not poisonous. At the same time, the reaction is there. So I saw it with the Bhaicharan Prabhu. So I joked about it, and he also joked, and he immediately remembered, we as practitioners of Bhakti Yoga trying to practice, we immediately remember such examples from our philosophy, and we can laugh at it together, helping and realizing, trying to realize this philosophy, how it actually works in practice. Those examples are really relevant, and in one sense can be experienced even exactly as they are given in Shastra. So we create those situations in a subtle form and suffer the consequences. These sufferings cannot be mitigated unless we are awakened from our dream. So in both cases, whether somebody woke you up from a dream, or in this case, I told Abai, hey, it's the rope, and relax. So that moment, his illusion dissipates. It's not a snake. In a dream, it's not a tiger or not a war. He's in a safe position. So immediately, the breathing comes back to normal. Takes you still a few seconds for your brain to process that there's no danger that affects your body. And then you calm down. Of course, a lot of distress these days is coming from our own mind. It's called Adhyatmika Klesha, body and mind. So that mind can also reproduce some stress, which is irrelevant sometimes for us. Yet, for one reason or the other, it puts a person in a distressful condition. So for that, again, some persons, like psychologists or just a hearty friend, can, by talking to you, dissipate your distresses created in your mind. And again, that helps a person to breathe normally. Okay, this is a world's biggest problem, but it's not exactly connected to me directly right now. I'm not there. Okay, maybe my friends are there in this distressful situation, but in order to help them, I should be myself. First you help yourself, then you help others. You have to be yourself calm. Otherwise, if you're distressed, how can you help others in distress? So first, calm down, like this. But it causes such adhyatmika klesha causes certain like distresses that may go into melancholy or depression, anxiety, other forms of distress. But interestingly enough, when we focus on our duties, prime duties, when we actually know our duties, first of all, many people don't even know that they have some. Through that service, especially devotional service, but which is the most prime duty, many of those distresses, even though existing, they become kind of insignificant. Not that we ignoring them or not acknowledging them or not even having them. We still may have a dream about the war tiger. We still may misinterpret the snake on the road. We still may be concerned, and the waves of distress may come to our mind, connecting with some troublesome situation of whatever that is. Like for example, right now in America, there is some Iowa cyclone or whatever the name is again, coming to Florida. Devotees had to cancel the festival that they were preparing for 5 months. The army is already there, getting ready for a big flood and potential electricity power cuts, and so you may start worrying, okay, will devotees be okay? Will our temple get flooded? Will devotees be affected? So you may be concerned, and that's human being. It's human to have life heart of being concerned for the well-being of others. At the same time, realistically, what can you do? Especially since it's still in a waiting stage. Okay, you can pray for cyclone not to, Krishna, if you so desire, as Prabhupada taught us, please let devotees be safe. That's a very humble prayer for well-being of devotees, not just devotees, for all people in that area. But of course, we are very concerned about devotees because they are, the best among people in a way that they helping others to non-stop helping others to reduce that illusion that we are living in, where is always this suffering. So can I pray in this humble way? But apart from that, what else can you do? We don't know yet about the potential distractions. So in this way, there's no point sending money at this stage. You cannot stop cycling. You're in a different place. Also, you have your life and your duties that you have to do. And if you'll be constantly thinking about this problem, you will not be able to focus, because our brain works in such a way that it can multitask. It can. But the quality of multitasking is reducing in the quality of work being done, both the time and quality, like the time you spend on a task and the qualitative way in quality how you do this task, unless you actually really focus. And so in this way, we really need to learn how to focus on what to do now. If I'm a pujari, I have to focus on my dressing. Somebody's dressing deities right now. But I have to focus. I can hear the lecture, it's fine. At the same time, I have to focus on forms of the Lord. Everything is done nicely for them. The pleasure of the Lord. How is the Lord feeling? How does he like? How will he like this? The way I'm dressing, the way I'm decorating. Is it pleasure? Giving him pleasure? You're looking really nice. And then will others like the way that the Lord looks? Will they enjoy his beautiful form? So we can think of both pleasure of the Lord and pleasure of devotees. But in order to focus, we have to really, think about that. If we think about constantly stray, if our mind is elsewhere, we will not be able to produce good result. Same if we are reading Shastra. If we're reading and not actually contemplating mananam, if we're not thinking about what we're reading. And if we're thinking of, for example, this distress that's there, we actually will read, and then somebody asks you, so what did you read? What will you reply? Because all you remember is the situation you were thinking about the distress of devotees, of this cyclone, or this war, or this whatever. So you actually read and not read. So what's the point of this reading? Same, somebody is hearing very attentively right now on this class, and somebody may be, doing something. We don't know. We don't see, apart from cows, we don't see live pictures. So we don't know who's doing what, and whether the person actually hears or not hears, right? And in this way, the quality he gets from hearing reduces by the proportion of how much he is distracted physically and mentally. So that's why we're trying to read and hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Holy Name and everything else in the morning when there is a sattva gun, when hopefully we have not yet looked into the mobile phones to get all those news of the world, which is usually my problem, because if I by mistake switch on Wi-Fi in the morning, sometimes even to get something specifically, I can get easily distracted, because in Europe, it's already been day full on, they're already in Rajaguna, it's daytime when they, active. And so a lot of chats appear, a lot of requests, a lot of, like, just fills up. And if hopefully when I'm reading this, I can get easily carried away in their situations, problems, questions, seeking for advice or just discussions, and sometimes not even sattvic discussions. So it can be so many distractions just by switching on the phone, especially living in different time zones. But then what about us? What about our prime duties? Hearing and chanting the holy name, attending morning program, chanting attentively, reading Shastra, hearing Shastra. So we can easily get distracted. And that's a symptom of Kali Yuga also. Remember, I think, I'm not sure if Dasa Prem read that verse yesterday about Mandasa Mandamatayo, that, we are very, very, in Kali Yuga, our position is so frail. Our memory is short, and we are constantly in anxiety. The lifespan is, also decreases and shortens. There's constantly some anxiety going on. We're very dull to understand spiritual signs, and we practically don't have motivation for that either in general. So we have to be really pushed a little bit, or sometimes not a little bit, for that, for progress in any spiritual science, for us, bhakti path. So so that's the point, that morning brings sattva gun, and so sattva gun should be used, the opportunity should be used, Brahma Muhurta, and the time when our mind is more or less calm, because we haven't heard the news yet, and less disturbed. So we should use this time properly, to get rid of those illusions, and then live the day through with understanding, with the philosophical understanding that, okay, I'm challenging this problem or that problem. I know they're temporary. I just heard in this class about Madras Parshas to account. Yeah, they come and go. So when it comes, it's uncomfortable, but it will go. Whatever that is, ultimately it will end. Anything. The cyclone will end. The war will end. Any other distress in this world will end at some point, sooner or later. And we can affect it to some degree. Mostly, if it's Adhidaivika klesha, practically we cannot do anything. We cannot withstand the huge karma that is coming, prarabdha karma. And actually, Yashadev Prabhu was mentioned in this class, and it's very interesting that in his, I think 2 classes ago, he mentioned that the war is actually in a category of adhidaivika klesha, not adhibhautika klesha. Although you get the actual suffering from somebody shooting, but the war is a phenomenon. It's actually in the same way as pandemics, in the same way as natural disasters. It comes in the same category of adhidaivika klesha. Yes, we have certain persons triggering it, like in World War II, it was clear, Hitler was the ideologist of this war and pushing it forward. But yet also other people doing this. But eventually, from philosophical point of view, the karma of the world had to manifest as a reaction for, usually in our philosophy, we understand that because animals are slaughtered, especially cows, in such a number, it's billions. So those people who are, and we know the chain of those who are killing, those who are trading, those who are serving, those who are eating, those who are paying for this in supermarkets, those who are involved in logistics, they all get the proportion of karma or bad karma for that animal slaughter, especially cows. And so that reaction will come and manifest in a pandemic, or natural disaster, or war, when a huge amount of persons, people, will have to die because of that reaction of them killing the animal or participating in a killing animal in a previous life. And that's why, Buddhist philosophy, I remember Bhakti-Abhal Maharaj in his class on Bhakti Sangam festival many years ago in Ukraine, he was saying that one Buddhist monk went into deep stage of, he reached samadhi. 1 year he didn't eat and drink. He was in this trance. And then when he came out of this trance, and he was a very young person, he was, in his early 20s, if not teens, he was really extraordinary, a Buddhist monk who went into this deep stage of samadhi. And then when he came out of that trance, people were asking him for his realizations. The first thing he said when he came out of this trance, he said, there will never be peace in this world if people will continue those slaughterhouses, if they will continue killing animals. So basic principles of ahimsa is what Lord Buddha came to teach. Stop unnecessarily killing, and especially using Vedas, Vedic knowledge, for killing animals. So as simple as it sounds, and people don't believe in it, they think cause of the war is something else. No, cause of the war is this. That's a deeper cause of those karmic reactions, triggers. Right now there's war in Ukraine, and Russia started mobilization just recently. Usually mobilization starts when you defend the country. Last time mobilization in Russia was during Second World War, when Hitler attacked Russia. Yet they started the mobilization, and those videos are horrifying, devotees, really. Some videos, how people are mobilized, all the laws are broken, like they mobilize in few days, sent to those camps, and from the camps right to the area where it's the war zone. Some people don't have any military background. They didn't have any training in those camps to shoot properly. There's practically no training. In other words, they just send in people like animals are sent to slaughterhouses. The way you see those videos, how they are in those queues to those buses and trains to get to mobilization, it really resembles, like the picture you can see, people are standing there, not understanding they're gonna be killed. Same as a poor cow sometimes stands in this queue, doesn't know that soon it will be killed. In the same way, you can see this picture, and you can, by having the knowledge of Shastra, you can see, exact parallel of cows being killed in a previous life and those people being killed now soon. It's like identical situation, like a herd of dumb animals. Those people are standing in those queues for their death soon, and it's very painful to see. Vaishnav is a known as a Parduka Dukhi. He's very compassionate. He's got this Jiva Doya. His heart is sorrowful and painful by just seeing how people unnecessarily, without knowledge, in ignorance, suffering in this world. And when you see this, you can see this is Atidaivika. This karma is just dragging for the inevitable. It's happening right in front of your eyes, also because we have those media devices these days. Everybody has a camera to film these situations. Like it wasn't like this during the Second World War, any other world war before, because we didn't. It was in Vedic times when Sanjaya could see that and transmit this television of Kurukshetra to Dhritarashtra. But in recent Kali Yuga times, the reporters were, making their little films days after, and it was so limited also. Usually you read it in newspapers. These days we're watching war in or volcano eruption or tsunami or this, that, the other. We're watching in almost live streaming, like this lecture stream right now. So we're watching this live stream. It's actually, and also, those pictures are not supposed to be seen by like children or ladies or because it affects them so much. They're not. Even men should actually not really see this, because it actually then those bad dreams, and it causes so much disturbances. Unless you can do something about it, you should not be willingly exposing yourself to those horrifying pictures. I think I heard there was even a custom in Vedic times that a lady would have a little mirror nearby her bed, that when she would wake up, she would look into the mirror to see her face first or something before she sees anything else. Because the thing is that whatever you see in the morning is like a first samskar. If you see a rat or something unpleasant picture, that sits in your consciousness for a very long time. So that's why morning is so important, not to hear the news, not to hear anything else. Many senior devotees, first thing they do in the morning, they switch on Prabhupada. Prabhupada is constantly playing in their places, because we want to expose our hearing to spiritual sound vibrations. So for me, I have alarms. That's not the first sound that wakes me up. Those are devotees chanting, different devotees, usually my spiritual master, but also there's other devotees, chanting just the bhajans or kirtans that I liked, and I think it would wake me up in the morning in an appropriate mood. I set them as an alarm sound. So it's not beep, 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 it's actually Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's the first thing. And it's nice to hear at least something first. You can hear this transcendental sound vibration. It wakes you from illusions very quickly. So this is what we need. We need to awaken ourselves from those illusions. Sorry, I'm just going, forth and backwards, but we cannot realize ourselves as Aham Brahmasmi if we just sit and say Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham. It will not help. Although some yogis not going to mention their names, but they do propose this meditation, that you sit and just chant this Aham Brahmasmi as the first mantra. But it doesn't work like this. In order to realize you're the soul, you have to act as a soul. You have to be engaged in devotional service in the proper consciousness. So that proper consciousness has to be only, you can only switch it on. You can say switch on, ignite the Krishna consciousness, which is dormant. It's your natural situation. But you have to ignite it through the proper Shravanam and Kirtanam, through proper hearing and chanting. Then, by engaging further in Shravanam Kirtanam, or Smaranam, or Padasevanam, or Archanam, then this Archanam will start manifest in a proper way. Actually, Ananda Loka Prabhu, a very senior devotee from Prabhupada's times, not initiated by Prabhupada, but he was back then already. So when he came here to Gitanagari, just by seeing him, you can see when you see a saintly person, they're so effulgent, they're so humble, and yeah, just the whole appearance. In their appearance, you feel Krishna consciousness when they appear. So I asked him, because he really likes worshiping deities in different temples. That's his like hobby, spiritual hobby. He wants to worship. He wants to have experience of worshiping all the deities across at least all United States, and he does so. And so before he starts worshiping, or even if his first deity shift is waking the deities, before doing that, he has his 16 rounds chanted already. Can you believe that? It means that he wakes up at 2 o'clock, chants all his japa by 4, and then wakes the deities. And he was telling me how important it is to have a proper Krishna consciousness before you worship the deities. Not only it mitigates certain mistakes, and there's a nectar devotion, there's a list of not faults, but apparatus, the offenses that you make during the archanam. So when you have right consciousness, you really more safe to commit less mistakes, less offenses. But also you do it in a proper consciousness. You understand what you're doing. You don't take the deities as some matter. You actually see them as persons, and it becomes a very, very sattvic and proper archana, proper service to the Lords, to the forms of the Lords. Not like you just woke up, put the tilak on, run to the altar. I'm just talking about myself. Sometimes it happens, and it's really bad. It's really the only thing I try to do when this happens is that, my lords, please forgive me. It's not going to be the best day for you by offering me this service to you now in this consciousness. So please forgive me. I start like this, and then whatever happens. But it's not. I know it's not proper, and it should not be like that. So we should always strive to be more sattva guna in our life. Anyway, I'll probably stop here. If you have any comments or questions, 10 minutes left before the eating.
Hare Krishna, dear Venu-Madhurya Prabhu. Can you hear me?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Vishnudev Prabhu.
Thanks for a very interesting class. Lots of topics discussed. And I just wanted to ask you, what are your good reading habits? So you mentioned about how we can read. Sometimes we're inattentive to what we're reading. So I'm wondering, what is your good reading habits besides just doing early in the morning or in Sattva Guna? What else? Do you have any other tricks for hearing Krishna Katha attentively?
Yes, thank you, Vishnudev Prabhu. So recently, I started to use the habit that Prabhupada gave us. That means Srimad Bhagavatam in the morning and Bhagavad Gita in the evening. I actually stopped reading Bhagavad Gita for some time. I just was reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and I realized I'm lacking something. And so I started to read Bhagavad Gita in the evening. At least a verse a day. I mean, that's my minimum, like to read a verse a day consciously if I'm having a busy day, which is almost every day. But at least I should sit down and read sometime, and at least one nice verse with a long purpose, not small purpose. If it's small purpose, I read like multiple verses, but if it's at least one good long purpose, so I can actually contemplate on the subject discussed. And when I'm reading and I'm seeing that I'm thinking about something else, I'm not getting what I'm reading, I'm starting rereading. Because there's no rush, it's not about, okay, I read this chapter. It's not about, I'm not reporting this to anybody. Okay, I read this chapter today, guys. Woohoo, It's about me understanding what I'm reading. even if it's just one verse. And Prabhupada used to say, if you just understand one verse in Bhagavad Gita, your life is saved, And then sometimes he would go for encouragement even deeper. If you just understand one word, one syllable of Srimad Bhagavatam, you're perfect. Because what that means is that you understand who pronounces Srimad Bhagavatam is Shukadev Goswami, is a perfect self-realized soul. Do you remember that actually consequences that Maharaj Parikshit came to Ganges to fast, and then he said he knew he has to fast, it's the right thing to do, yet when the sages appeared, first thing he does, apart from greeting them properly like that, he asks their permission and inquires, do you think it's suitable for me to fast? He's getting their confirmation. It's a humble attitude of a disciple. Even he knows what to do, he goes to instruction, yet he still asks, for blessings, approvals, whether it's the right thing to do, putting himself in such a dependency, voluntarily dependency on sages. And then when he asks these most important questions, what is the right thing to do when one is about to die? Because he knows he has to die in 7 days. So all what the sages how they started to react, because they had different opinions, they started to pray to the Lord, oh please, Lord, make it clear and evident the answer, so it's like in unison. So the answer is in unison of what actually he has to do right now. We don't want to commit mistake. They started to pray to the Lord, and on their prayer, when they started to pray, Lord, please give us the understanding, let us pronounce the right thing, Shukadev Goswami appears right at that moment. So for everybody it was so evident that, okay, this person knows, and he will say what to do. And although he was the youngest, he was 16 years old, everybody could detect he's above, he's completely self-realized, not a tinge of material contamination. He will tell us what to do. So when I'm reading, for example, Srimad Bhagavatam, I sometimes contemplate, because I was just rereading first canto recently, just finishing it almost. So when I was reading, new angles of, because I, heard what I just said, I heard in lectures. So and I was rereading exactly this chapter right now, and Maharaj Parikshit being very humble, but knowing those circumstances around, the reading really dives my consciousness in. Even though I'm reading, just few verses, this is the reality of Gita Nagari for me right now. Only on my day off I can read more, but usually it's just a little bit. But in that little bit, I try to condense it. So at least if I'm reading, so I can actually, if somebody asks me, if my wife asks me, what did you read today? So I can actually tell something that inspired me in that verse or that particular purport. And it really does. When I, one day I read that Maharaj Parikshit was humbly asking devotees for approval. Another time he was humbly, just feeling bliss that his fortune is that all those sages came to him. He saw it as the mercy of God that sages came to him in the moment of him, leaving the body. So he was very grateful. So one day I was meditating his gratefulness, another day on his humbleness, another day, on this whole circumstance, how sages have reacted, although it's not mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's how our acharyas describe it. Their prayerful mood, what caused, what was the reply? Reply was the appearance of Shukadev Goswami. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting both for the mind and soul. So I think a person should, the trick is that we should understand this is our main food. Srimad Bhagavatam Shastra is our main food for the soul. You cannot let soul suffer hunger, spiritual hunger. You have to satisfy the hunger and thirst. Okay, sorry, take thirst, for example. Thirst is more understood, it's more frequently. It's like without water, you cannot really survive. Without food, you can survive sometimes. So this is the water for the soul. You have to dive in. So when you have that opportunity, And I know, especially for busy families with children, this opportunity also, like for us in Gitanagi with service, same for you, for grihastas with children, the time is really limited when you can actually, sit down, babies, children are crying. You should allow, 1 hour, you take both children, so Anandini can read a little bit, focus and read without, she knows, for 15 minutes, my children will not disturb me, and my husband also. And I'm switching off the phone, just taking a book and read for 15 minutes, with focus and attention. This is my water for soul. If that attitude is there, Lord will certainly reciprocate. He can give us so many realizations just from one verse, from 2-3 verses, and purpose. So this is my main attitude, is that I apologize in the first way that I cannot read more, but I'm asking the Lord, please allow me to understand what I'm reading right now. And if I see that my mind got so disturbed in the evening usually, that I cannot even understand what I'm reading in Bhagavad Gita, I force myself to reread. I say, look, I'm not going out until I get something from it. So please focus. So I'm rereading and reading. Sometimes it takes me 5 times to reread the purport to actually get a little bit of what I'm actually reading. Because I'm not satisfied if I'm coming out of reading without understanding anything. It's, I know for sure, when Prabhupada puts so much effort in those purposes, there must be something for me. If I'm not understanding, it's just me being dull, or me being, in the lower modes of consciousness. So just trying to refocus until I get something. So that's the tip, But there are so many tips, So every devotee can tell you a tip. How they meditate on Prabhupada, so many ways of approaching. Somebody's making prayers, glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam before reading, I remember, and I constantly remember this picture in Navraj Dham in Hungary. They have Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita on the altar where the deities are, in the corner. And every time the class starts, they bring on a throne. They have a special throne made for Chaitanya Charitamrita or Srimad Bhagavatam. They put it on a throne, on the altar. The pujari gives this book on a throne to a person who is setting up for the class. And then devotees who are in the room, they stand up, like when some person comes, a very important person, everybody stands up. So everybody in the altar room, in the temple room, stand up and greet Srimad Bhagavatam with Chaitanya Charitamrita. They carry it on the throne. They put it on the table on this little holder, which is like a Vyasa-san. And then everybody sits down and the class starts, And of course, everybody, Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's such a nice ceremony, you that immediately, how to say, like, brings your attention to what is actually happening right now. It's not just a daily routine thing. No, it's a great ceremony. It's a great bliss. It's a great mercy. And to be honest, every time I visited many times now Rajdam, I really like the way they focus their attention on deities and the Shastra, thanks to Shivaram Swami Maharaj and other senior devotees. The way they develop this culture of their lives really around. I mean, they're so busy also with cows and garden, and they don't have electricity. Don't remember. They wake up, they have to pull the ropes, get the bucket of water, put it on a stove which is heated by wood, so they have to make fire, heat the wood, and then take a shower, warm shower, unless they want a cold shower. This is how they do it every day. Whoever lives on the farm, 120 persons. And yet, 25% of them are all the time on Mangalarati. Every time I was there, at least 30 persons on Mangalarati. So that's like 25% of people. And for deity greetings, at least half of the communities greeting the deities. Same for the class. There you go, deity greetings. So I should stop now. So all I wanted to say is that, yes, keep it as a focus also. This is our water. The deities, the reading of Shastra. Hare Krishna. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.